What do you picture when you hear of the devil? I grew up in the 80s and the 90s, so I often think of SNL's John Lovitz in a red cape. Or I think of the Simpsons Halloween episodes, where the uber-Christian Ned Flanders actually reveals himself to be the short-horned Prince of Darkness. Of course, the comedic caricatures were at the time balanced by a more serious consideration that the devil was behind most rock music, at least according to many, and anything involving wizards or dungeon masters like AD&D. Now, C.S. Lewis once said there are two equal and opposite errors into which our race can fall about the devils. Now, one is to disbelieve in their existence. The other is to believe and to feel an excessive and unhealthy interest in them. Now, perhaps you know someone who misplaces their keys. They spill their coffee or they trip over the dog in the morning, and later in the day they suggest that the devil is after them. No, sometimes we're just clumsy. But more likely, as moderns conditioned by our secular world, more often we're simply ignorant to the spiritual battle and the spiritual evils active in our world. The material frame we live in is not all there is. Now, the word revelation, as we've discussed previously, means unveiling. The vision that John receives is intended to kind of throw back the curtain on reality, allowing us to see what's really going on. In Revelation 2:10, Jesus continues, "Do not be afraid about what you're about to suffer. I tell you, the devil will put some of you in prison to test you, and you will suffer persecution for 10 days. Be faithful even to the point of death, and I will give you life as your victor's crown." Now, the people of the church of Smyrna weren't expecting the devil to show up knocking at their door, ready to take them away. Rather, what they expected were armed Roman guards. What they knew was that behind their power was the devil. Jesus' comforting words might, at first glance, seem not altogether comforting. Notice that Jesus doesn't say, do not be afraid about what you might suffer. He says, do not be afraid of what you are about to suffer. Mark your calendars. It's coming. Be faithful even to the point of death. Do not be afraid, even if they kill you. Now, how is this comforting? Why should they be courageous? Because as we saw last time, Jesus is the one who has already overcome death. And if they suffer to the point of death, it's victory. Jesus will give them life and a crown of victory. And there's a line in there. Some will be thrown in prison and suffer for 10 days. Now, I just want to camp out on this a moment. It sounds oddly specific, doesn't it? Now, what we have to remember is that visions are highly symbolic. The book of Revelation consists of 404 verses. And depending on how you count, over 500 allusions to the Old Testament. Now, the message to the church is that in prison they will be what? Tested. For how long? 10 days. If you know your Old Testament, it sounds a lot like Daniel chapter 1. Where Daniel asks the guard overseeing them, please test your servants for 10 days. Give us nothing but vegetables to eat and drink, and water to drink. Now, do you remember what that story was about? It was about Daniel and his friends' commitment to remain faithful to God and not assimilate to the ways of the Babylonian Empire. The people in Smyrna are facing a very similar temptation to give in and assimilate. But with the curtain thrown back, we can see that it's not just Rome, but the enemy behind Rome at work. And the question for us today is, are there things in my faith that are costly in our world? A smooth sailing is the sign of assimilation. Our Christian witness should not fit in our American culture like a hand in glove. If we're committed to faithfulness, there should be discomfort and tension. And our ongoing struggles just might be the sign that we're passing the test. It might be the sign of victory. Have a blessed week.